In a break with the past, both the U.S. and China made no mention of the denuclearization of the Korean Peninsula in their recently unveiled defense policy papers. Concerns are mounting, with some saying that the two superpowers are no longer seeing tensions on the peninsula as a priority. Now, to talk more on this, we invite our Kim Bo-kyung into the studio. Bo-kyung, welcome.
Thanks for having me, Toyeon.
Now, first, in late November, China unveiled its arms control white paper, where the term complete denuclearization was dropped. Now, what is this about?
Right, so the paper was an update for the first time in 20 years. And the biggest change of this recent military paper was that it omitted the term denuclearization of the Korean Peninsula. The 2005 version of the paper explicitly stated that China supports this, but now in 2025, it departed from that policy by just saying that China adopts an impartial stance and adheres to the right approach of working for peace and stability on the peninsula and the resolution of Korean Peninsula issues through political means. Now, one expert says Beijing has not moved away from denuclearization itself, as it values the UN system that is putting sanctions on Pyongyang's nuclear program. However, China also does not have any practical means to put a stop to this program. And as Beijing, too, needs to keep Washington in check, it does not feel any need to worsen its ties with the North.
China now realistically believes that denuclearization is no longer possible. And because it currently needs to improve its relationship with North Korea, it has little will to push strongly for North Korea's denuclearization and doesn't want to use the tools at its disposal to do so.
Now, it's not just Beijing. We're talking about Washington, too, and that's the reason why Seoul is even more concerned about the omission of denuclearization on the peninsula, right?
Right. So the new U.S. national security strategy released by the White House last Friday, it also failed to mention the denuclearization of the Korean Peninsula. In the document released during the former President Joe Biden administration in 2022, the NSS mentioned Pyongyang 3 times, saying Washington would pursue diplomacy for the complete denuclearization of the peninsula while strengthening its extended deterrence. The one released in 2017 from Trump's first administration also mentioned North Korea 17 times, saying the U.S. would work with allies and partners to achieve CVID of the peninsula. Now, experts say it would be hard for the Trump administration to say North Korea is a de facto nuclear state. However, the importance of dealing with peninsula issues has been waning in the U.S. for some time, and it cannot be denied that the U.S. believes pursuing denuclearization on the peninsula is quite unrealistic.
Trump could think that the denuclearization issue could be a potential stumbling block to U.S.-North Korea summit diplomacy. Also, Trump is now looking for a grand bargain with China, not just on trade, tariffs, and economic issues, but also bringing nuclear controls and broader security concerns to the table.
The Trump administration is viewing the pursuit of North Korea's denuclearization as unrealistic. The administration's primary concern is no longer North Korea's nuclear armament or provocations, but rather it is focusing on containing China. So it would be right to say that denuclearization has essentially disappeared from the administration's main policy agenda.
Now, as the issue of denuclearization of the peninsula is going down the priority list for both U.S. and China, it must put more pressure and burden on South Korea. So what are some experts are actually saying that Seoul needs to consider its own nuclear armament. What is this about?
Right. So many experts say that such omissions from the U.S. and China's defense papers hint at their lowered priority of denuclearization. And some add that the U.S. needs to give a green light to South Korea when it comes to its own nuclear armament. For example, Harry Kazianis, chairman of the National Security Journal, highlighted that if the U.S. is a true ally, it should remove all restrictions and allow not just South Korea but also Japan to forge their own paths in self-defense. The expert I talked to also said that now that Washington is asking for its allies, Seoul and Tokyo, to boost their military capabilities and deal with problems in the region on our own, it is possible for Seoul to open up talks for nuclear armament, and that perhaps Washington's approval for nuclear-powered submarines was a start.
If possible, the United States now wants South Korea and Japan to cooperate and resolve problems in East Asia themselves, and it has shown a willingness to provide the necessary military capabilities or support to back that up. In that sense, I believe the path for South Korea to pursue its own nuclear armament is also open.
All right, thanks for the insightful coverage.
Thank you, Doyan.